Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning back in. Today I've got a viewer question that I thought I would read for you because it's kind of a lengthy question, but I thought it's a really good topic to discuss. It has to do with how quiet you need to be while in the water. Do fish recognize somebody being stealthy, or does it not matter and you can be loud, bang around in the boat, make all the noise you want and still catch the fish? So I got a lot of different thoughts on this. There's too many different ways I can go with this to do just in the comment section, so I told the viewer I would do a video on it. First, I wanted to read his question though, or the majority of it. Like I said, it is a long comment, but I thought it was worth talking about because he's got some really good points here. So it states, "Hey Matt, thank you for the info as always. I just wanted to ask a question and it has to do with the importance of being silent or stealthy while fishing. How important do you feel it actually is? Do you ever find yourself as a tournament angler forgetting the importance of stealth or getting caught in the moment and forgetting to approach a spot super quietly because of the thrill of competing or just trying to be super efficient? I'm sure nearly every boater does this and I see it on live, but do you think it may be costing tournament anglers fish and or wins? Side note, I bring this up because I get to fish a major lake maybe 4 or 5 times a year. He lives in the Southwest. All of the major nearby lakes are clear water reservoirs in a desert setting. I also fish from a float tube. The last time I fished, I pretty much dragged a drop shot all day long in 10 to 20 foot of water, about 40 feet behind my float tube, and I did really well, maybe 30 or 40 fish that day and a few really good ones. I'm asking this because that day there was a 120 boat tournament going on and I must have seen 15 bass boats with guys coming hard into the large cove I was in. They dropped the trolling motor and immediately tried reaction baits and then going finesse for a while, then blasting out of there. None of them caught anything. I did not see one person in any boat catch anything all day, and most boats had 2 people in them. They were fishing the same water as I, sometimes for up to an hour, and I was consistently getting bit. All day I bet I didn't go longer than 15 minutes without a bite in 9 hours. I know that I am not near as good as a fisherman or have near the experience as any of those guys, so I've been really trying to consider the variables that allowed me to do so well and for them not to do well. The only advantage I can think of in a float tube over boats is stealth, maybe drifting naturally with the current for better bait presentation. A few days later, I even looked online at the tournament results, and first place that day was a little over 13 pounds. I don't want to boast, but I think I would have had that in the first 3 hours. Anyways, I thought maybe with all of your years on the water in pressure tournaments and situations, you might have some insight. Thanks for all you do and good luck." Today's video is brought to you by the Deep Dive app. This has had an amazing new update. As you guys know, I love the water clarity feature. As you can see right here, we're looking at Grand Lake, which just had a whole pile of rain come into it. It went from being really clear to having a lot of dirty water coming in the bottom end of it. Just an amazing feature to be able to determine where the clear water is versus the muddy water. So Deep Dive has just also introduced stream flow. Now this is a really cool feature that shows all of the water input coming into certain reservoirs and the amount of water coming in. So they measure it in cubic feet per second. You can see in this case, this is just a small creek, but then you can see the projected as well as the previous flows. If we move up the lake here, get into one of the larger rivers coming in, you can see here that we've got 490 cubic feet per second. And then it shows you that there's not much of a change expected. Now, if there's some rainfall coming, I'm sure those projections will change. If we scoot on over here to take a look at Kentucky Lake and Barkley Lake, much larger river systems, the Tennessee River, you can see what the projected outflow is going to be there, 28,000 cubic feet per second. Go check the Cumberland River here. We got 9.4 thousand cubic feet per second. Just an amazing feature that allows you to see all of the different water flows coming into the different parts of the lake. You can see which ones might be the most affected, which ones won't be affected, see what the projected outflow schedules are. A major feature to help you catch more fish. And that's on top of some of the other new features like the wind effects. Now, the wind effects is really cool because we've had wind effects as part of the app in the past, but all it did is show where the wind was hitting the shoreline the most, as you can see from the dots, the orange and bright red dots, which indicate where the wind is really striking. But now the wind feature also indicates what the wave action is like on the lake itself. So some of the features you're going to get from this is determining where to get from place to place safely by avoiding the heavy, rough water conditions. You'll be able to determine where you may have some of the strongest current flow and some of the places where you can fish to stay protected. Now, along with that, you still have some of my favorite features, like the patterns that you've got on the lake that indicate the best baits and lures to fish with. You've also got the water inflow app, which shows you where a bunch of the rain input comes in. That can be an amazing pattern to fish throughout the year. Just a great feature to have. So many positive features anytime you're fishing or using the Deep Dive app. Just points you in the right direction to catch more fish. Whether you're a tournament angler or a local fun fisherman that's just out to catch a few fish, the Deep Dive app will help you catch more fish next time you're out on the water. Great question, great comment. I love everything that's in that. He provides a lot of valuable information, and it's a really good question. Does stealth matter? And I can go both ways on this. I could make an argument that it absolutely does. I could make an argument that it does not. As a rule of thumb, I think stealth will never hurt you. I don't honestly feel like there's any situation where sneaking up on the fish is going to be a bad thing. So ultimately, I think stealth is great. In this situation, you know, if you're sitting in a float tube, floating around super quietly, I do think that that's about as stealthy as you can get. I think if you're fishing deeper water conditions, like it sounds like he was, you know, his legs aren't coming anywhere in contact with the bottom and stirring things up. It's an extremely stealthy presentation. Now, do I think that those bass boats that were going into the area that he was fishing were not catching anything based on them making too much noise? It's potentially possible. I do think there have been studies shown that fish do react somewhat to electronics. So if you've got forward-facing sonar, or you've got your 2D sonar, or you got side imaging, whatever it is, there is some pinging noise that's taking place. I think the fish could be somewhat aware of that. I think there could be an instance here where he had a bait that was just working better. You know, in this case, maybe dragging his drop shot was providing better success than maybe the other anglers that were fishing, say, top waters. I also would say, not that I don't believe they didn't catch anything. My guess is those other boats caught things. That happens to me. In every tournament I fish, I feel like I very rarely see other competitors catching fish. And if I do see them catching fish, I know it's going to be a total smash fest. And when every time I don't see people catching fish, I'm always like, maybe they didn't catch them. Well, ultimately, you get to the tournament weigh-in and everyone caught them, at least at the professional level. Now, in this case, you know, he says 13 pounds was caught. That isn't a huge bag, so maybe it was a really tough day on the water and his stealth paid off. So, yes, I think stealth is a great thing. I'm going to counter this, though, by saying there are some situations where stealth, I'm not going to say it hurts you, but you might actually need to have some non-stealth, meaning I fished a tournament where I very clearly was fishing a bite that was dependent on boat traffic. You know, I was set up in a place where a creek channel met the main river channel. There was a school of fish there. There was a boat ramp at the back of the creek with designated green and red buoys to show traffic where to go in and out. The school of fish was literally sitting right where that red and green buoy met the main river channel. So they'd come out, boats would come out of the boat ramp, turn left or right and go down the river channel. I could not catch a fish there until I had a boat that would go through that boating lane. If the boat went through the boating lane, I would throw in the prop wash, catch a fish, literally almost every cast. The problem was I could only catch one or two for each boat. So I would sit there, fish the spot for 15 minutes, and then a boat would go through that boating lane to the boat ramp. I would catch fish, or two fish, and then it would go dead for 15 or 20 minutes till the next boat. So in that case, boat traffic, without a doubt, I know for a fact, helped me. There's, you know, people in the blueback herring region that swear that you got to get out and create commotion to stir everything up to get fish to react to your blueback herring type fish. You know, I think in some instances you could argue that the fish are just really accustomed to the boat noise. You know, I've got a couple lakes that are around my neck of the woods that have party coves in them. If you go into that party cove, you'll have hundreds of boats tied up, music blasting, people swimming, a little bit of everything going on, and you can go through there and catch fish. So are those fish accustomed to that? Yeah, I think they are. I think the two biggest things that go into stealth on the water, the first has to do with what type of lake are you on? Are you on a lake that is a busy boat lake, or are you on a lake that doesn't get much boat traffic other than maybe fishing pressure? If the lake is a heavily fished lake that gets not a ton of crazy pressure from other boaters, those fish are more wary to angling pressure. So they're going to be more, in my opinion, they're going to react more to the pressure, and stealth plays a bigger factor. If you are on a lake that's a heavy boat traffic lake, even a heavily fished lake as well, those fish are so accustomed to your boat traffic that I think it just becomes part of their daily routine where they take advantage of the boat traffic in some form or fashion. The other issue, and this does come into play with the example that this viewer gave, really comes down to water clarity. In my opinion, fish are way more leery and concerned about boat pressure and boat noise in your really clear conditions. So in this case, this is a desert lake. I've seen it on places like Lake Mead, where I do think you need to be very, very stealthy. You're to the point where even your cast presentation and your landing of your bait can spook the fish. So, you know, if you're going down a bank, it's always better, generally, the majority of the time, to make a cast that makes a really light splash in the water. If you're going down the bank making giant splashes, that can be enough to spook fish under very, very clear water presentations. Now, to counter that, if you're fishing muddy water conditions, I mean, there's plenty of times where I've been banging around in the boat and literally, I've floated into a stump to get a bait undone and then literally dropped my bait back into the stump right next to the side of the boat and caught fish. So in those cases, I think the fish are just a lot less concerned if they don't have a shadow from the boat or can actually see the boat itself. I think they are just a lot more willing to put up with a bunch of different noise. So to me, the two biggest factors anytime considering stealth, and I don't think it's ever going to hurt you to be quiet. And it could have been the reason why this angler did do better than the other boats that he saw in the area. It could have also just been he had that right bait, the right color, the right presentation, and that caught him. But I don't think you're ever going to go wrong with being as stealthy as possible. I think the biggest factors that always go into that are what type of boating traffic is on that lake and fishing pressure is on that lake, and what's the water clarity look like. Current is the same thing. You can throw current in that mix, and all of a sudden you can get away with more noise in current because those fish are just sucked to certain pieces of cover and objects and not nearly concerned with outside surroundings. I mean, there's a lot of professional level anglers that will throw on music while they're fishing, even in tournaments. You know, for a long time, I always felt like having music in the boat would scare the fish. I think more than anything, it's more of a hindrance to the angler to be able to understand the surroundings and what's going on. Meaning if a fish starts chasing bait somewhere, if you have music playing and other noise, you might not hear what you would have normally heard. But I think it's more of a hindrance from that standpoint than actually being something that the fish are afraid of. But ultimately, the stealthier the better. So hopefully this answers the question. I love getting really detailed comments like this just because it does provide a good talking point. And if somebody's got that question, I'm sure other people have the question as well. So hopefully it answered that question. Thank you for watching. If you got questions you want answered, put it in the comments section. Otherwise, stay tuned. We'll have a new video coming out tomorrow.